Hello, this is Dr. Sandy Queen with Queen Homeschool Supplies, and one of our customers this morning requested that I do a video on our Discovering Nature and Science series books, how to use them, how to research them, and that's what I want to talk about with you today. So I want to go over the first two books in this series, Come and See and Farmyard and Dooryard Friends. These two books are at the same level. They are for children that are either pre-readers or they're not reading well enough to do any researching and writing that is required in the upper level volumes. So I'm going to just give an example with this one here because I can't hold both of them and open both of them at the same time. But Come and See, for example, each of the books in this series has a living book incorporated into the volume itself. So you will see a chapter of the story is being read every Monday, and you can do that at this age as a read aloud. You can do it at any age as a read aloud if you prefer. But whatever you see pictured on the front and back covers of the book is indicative of what is taught in that book. This particular book is a story of an aunt with her nephew and niece, and they go out in the yard, or they go to the stream or the pond or the zoo or the garden, different places, and they see different things that she points out and teaches them nature lessons about. So in here you're going to see a wide variety of topics such as weather, small animals, birds, insects, aquatic insects, different things every week. So first of all, you're going to start out with a chapter of the story on Monday, which you're going to read aloud to the child. And the rest of that week will be spent bringing out more information on what is in that story. They may have a day where they're drawing. They may have a day where they have some information, fun facts type thing. They may have a day where they're coloring or doing a craft or a hands-on activity or experiment. Every day is going to be different, and it's all going to just depend on what they've learned about in the story for that week. So this one does not require the child to be able to read independently, does not require them to have to do any research or writing, okay? And neither does Farmyard and Dooryard Friends. So FYI, these are the two for younger children who aren't ready to do researching and writing. From that point on, the next volume, and when you see them on our website at queenhomeschool.com, you're going to see them listed roughly in order of difficulty. So the next one, All Nature Sings, and the one after that, Our Animal Friends, those will require a child to be able to do some researching and writing, and you can certainly help them with that, help them along with that if they're still young and just kind of feeling their way with that. I just want to give an example of some of the other books where they will be doing researching and writing, such as Mary's Meadow. Mary's Meadow is a story of a group of siblings in England, and they find an old book in their grandfather's attic. The book happens to be the journal of the Queen's gardener telling how he kept her garden. So they decide they would like to duplicate the Queen's garden, and their uncle or their grandfather has a meadow at his disposal that he gives them to use, hence the name Mary's Meadow. One of the children's name is Mary. And so they read through the Queen's gardener's journal, and they learn about things like the different types of soil, topsoil and such, how to compost, how to design a garden, how to build a cold frame, plant classification, garden pests and how to deal with them naturally, helpful creatures in the garden such as worms. They learn so many different things all about botany, as well as other aspects of nature that they come across in the garden. So just as an example of a week's lesson, let me find the beginning of a story. Okay, so again, on Monday, they've got a chapter of the story to read. And then the rest of that week is spent here. They're designing a garden, they're researching and writing something. Okay, here we have different leaves that they're working on, leaves from different trees, how to identify them. So you're going to find a wide variety of hands-on activities, researching, writing, classifications, just further study. There are many volumes in this series. They do go all the way up through high school biology, high school chemistry, physics and astronomy, high school alternative medicine and anatomy. I am a naturopath, so this is a course that I wrote for my kids. All of them were courses that I wrote for my kids first, and of course for your kids as well. But I want to talk about how to research, because often that's a question that comes up. And particularly for parents, like many of us, myself included, who went to public school or even private school where textbooks were used, and the child might be given an assignment after reading a lesson in a textbook, and that assignment might give them something like, go back to the chapter that you read yesterday or the lesson that you read yesterday and find the answers to these questions and fill them in. That is not at all the type of researching that we do with the Discovering Nature and Science or with our Discovering History series. We do not give you a place to find the answer. It's not going to be in that week's story. You're going to have to find it yourself. Your child is going to have to find it himself. And we do that purposely. We don't spoon feed the child with information. We encourage the child to find knowledge, and there's a huge difference in that. We do not give you a list of specific books that you need to go out and find to have for research, because we don't want you to have to buy a bunch of specific books. We don't give you a bunch of websites because we don't have control over those external websites, and because also we want you and your child to become a researcher, a person who knows how to find things out. And we do have a book that we published called Learning How to Learn, which is available at queenhomeschool.com, that teaches a child how to research, how to use researching tools such as an encyclopedia and a dictionary and a concordance and an atlas and a phone book and everything that they would need to learn, to find out how to learn, basically, hence the title, Learning How to Learn. But when I was studying to become a naturopathic doctor when I was 50 years old, I found that it required a lot of researching for me. And you'll find this if your child goes to college or if you've been in college. Most of the time, they're not going to give you, sometimes you may have something that's an open book test. Sometimes you may have something that you'll have to dig and research and spend some time finding those answers. And if you think back to that, it's those ones that you had to dig out the answers that you remember today. I know that's the case for me. The ones where I just, I graduated high school with straight A's, got straight A's in history because I was good at memorizing facts, taking a test, getting them all right, forgetting all of that stuff, and moving on to memorizing the next list. And when I graduated with those straight A's, I knew absolutely nothing about history because I had only memorized and regurgitated it on the test and then forgotten it and worked on memorizing the next list. And had open book tests and things like that where I just had to look back to, oh, there's the answer, write it down. That's not going to give you knowledge. And, we are trying to foster knowledge and a love for learning and understanding in the children for whom we write these books. And so remember, these are books that I wrote for my children first, and this is what I wanted to foster in my children. I wanted them to be able to know how to find things out. And yes, it's going to take more time than just looking back in that week's story and saying, oh, there's the answer, I'm going to write it down. But the child is going to understand, the child is going to remember and retain because they had to find that information, they had to read it, they had to learn it, and then tell it back. So those lessons are like a written narration, which is telling back something you've learned. The child has to find out something and tell it back. That's what the researching lessons in these books are for. And that's why we purposely do not have a teacher's manual. The answers are not going to be identical for each child because the questions asked are not the type of questions that would have a yes or no or a specific answer. They are going to be something like find out more about this and tell about it. So we want the child to learn, truly learn, and to understand. And remember too that yes, There are going to be days when your child is done with their science lesson in 5 minutes, and there are going to be days when your child spends half an hour to maybe even longer, with the upper levels especially, because they're researching and they're trying to find out information and retain it and then tell it back in one of the lessons here. And so even though that may take a little longer than a science textbook, where you're going to look back in the pages that you read yesterday and find the answer to write down in your verbatim textbook, boring, dry, not really learning type curriculum, they're going to have other lessons because we're using the Charlotte Mason approach. The other lessons are always going to be very short. That's one of the hallmarks of a Charlotte Mason style education, is short, focused lessons. You do your best, you move on to something else. And so when we get to something else, such as the Discovering Nature and Science books or the Discovering History books, on those days, and it's not going to be every day, it's going to be once or twice a week, when they are going to have to research and write something, they've only spent a minimum amount of time on all of the other subjects. So they have that time to spend truly digging out information and learning in these books. So I hope that answers some of your questions about the Discovering Nature and Science series at queenhomeschool.com. Feel free to post any other questions that you might have regarding what's taught in each volume and that sort of stuff, and I will answer them as I can. Thanks a lot for watching.